can look back and say that Fulbright's made a paradigm shift in my career.
The experience that you get in the Fulbright by going somewhere else is monumental.
In a way, it's a bit cliche to say this, but I really found that the exposure to the American can-do attitude, as it's called, changed my life.
Well, that 4 months I think it was probably a life-changing experience in a variety of ways.
It was an enabling experience and a confidence-building experience.
I suppose that I've been more adventurous musically than I might have been.
It changed me in a lot of ways, a lot of very, very different ways, a lot of incalculable ways, a lot of small ways.
I think that my experience in the US had profound impact on me in terms of opening up new areas of experience for exploration.
I think I'm a better person. I'm hopefully a better mother. And also then a better understanding of people in general.
The Fulbright has made a difference for me personally by making me much more a citizen of the world.
The Fulbright experience for me is an ongoing experience. And I think Senator Fulbright, when he set up the programme, his whole idea of a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more reason, a little bit more compassion will make the world a better place. And I think that's a really nice balance.
Fulbright to me is sort of, they were the people that I went to when I thought I had an idea that might improve the world in some small way.
I have to say, it strikes me as one of the best programs the United States has for the exchange of ideas, for increasing understanding among countries, for achieving those goals that Senator Fulbright hoped, that we would increase reason, understanding, and compassion around the world. And just based on that, I think it's probably one of the most successful programs the United States has ever put forward following the Second World War.
The immediate thing I think about when somebody mentions the word Fulbright was Senator Fulbright himself. Somewhere deep in my subconscious is a memory of the very liberal and inspiring vision that he articulated shortly after the war when he talked about the need for understanding between peoples and how contact between peoples can generate understanding, and from that understanding reduce the possibilities of conflict. So that sense has always been in the back of my mind. I know, of course, it is an academic program, and I became much more involved with it then in 1987 when I became a Fulbright Scholar.
The wonderful idea of educational exchange was basically means young people from Ireland or researchers from Ireland, enabling them to go to the United States, new universities, new experience, meeting new colleagues and networking, and also researchers from the United States coming to Ireland. New experiences, new universities, collaboration and networking. It's fundamentally about human contact and an experience that adds value to the individual ultimately. That's what I think immediately.
I think of educational exchange, which from my point of view as a diplomat is such a valuable tool and one that helps us perform our function in diplomacy.
Fulbright really drives home the point that diplomacy is not political. It's something that begins with people and continues with people, and it's something that you're going to have essentially for the rest of your life. It's a conversation that sort of, even though you hang the phone up, it never ends.
So I think it was very, very profound for Ireland back in 1957 to start this programme, because I think that was at a time when the foundation of the state was still very, very new. We were very much trying to find our feet and our bearings outside of the UK and the administration of the UK. And we were very much fledgling state at that stage, even though we had a constitution for some years.
Many of the early Fulbrighters went to the United States to study agricultural issues. And they came back here to help the whole agricultural industry and market here in Ireland in ways that I think moved Ireland quite a ways in the 1950s and 60s into the modern kind of agricultural world.
The whole Celtic Tiger that we have enjoyed has been largely as a result of the input from our graduates from our universities who have been taught by Fulbright scholars. So it, in a roundabout way, I suppose, but in a very definite way, the Fulbright programme has had a major impact in the whole higher education system in Ireland.
Fulbright has helped us to come to where we now are in terms of genuinely being a place where researchers come from all over the globe. Fulbright was one of the earliest, if not the earliest, programs of international education exchange. It's between Ireland and our greatest friend in the world, the United States, because of our historical connectivity. I think after 50 years, it's appropriate that we see, can we expand that, can we develop that in ways that meet the current needs and requirements of both nations.
The Fulbright program has made a difference in, I think, two ways. One of them is sort of practical, down-to-earth career. There are Fulbrighters, one, for instance, I spoke with who thought, who brought up in a poor family, and he thought that he was going to teach piano to young people in the Bronx for the rest of his life. And after his Fulbright, he formed a chamber music concert series. He went all over the world. He received an appointment at a university. That's a huge difference. The second, of course, is the ties between people, and as they rise into leadership, the difference that those ties make. Japanese ambassador said that the relationship between Japan and the United States was so much better thanks to the Fulbright program, and he was a Fulbrighter to prove it.
Fulbright has made a difference. I mean, up to 1,600 people from Ireland have benefited from going overseas, and likewise 600 Americans have. As we move into the future, the world is now a global village. The international dimension is critical. The Irish peace process would not have been resolved without the international dimension, without the American dimension. It has made us closer as a people. Our contacts are growing. In the future, we will need to do much more of that.
Fulbright, to me, means change for the better. And I think whatever form that change takes, whether it's I'm changed or the people that I meet are changed because I've been on Fulbright, I think either way, perhaps we then achieve what Senator Fulbright wanted in the first place, that by understanding each other better, we realise maybe we're not all that different, or we can accommodate the differences between us. So change for the better, whether it's minds, whether it's actions. That for me is what Fulbright means.
Fulbright brings to mind the word opportunities, because it's really an opportunity in so many ways to learn about yourself, to further your academic or professional development, to learn a new culture, and to do a lot of self-reflection within that culture.
And by going to another country, it kind of causes you to think about those big questions that I think shape careers and make a difference.
I've no doubt that if I didn't go, I wouldn't have succeeded insofar as I have succeeded in my academic life.
I can look back and say that Fulbright's made really a paradigm shift in my career. Since I've come back, I've taken on PhD students, we've got grants, we've published papers, we've expanded our research group from 1 to 22. I think a major input into this has been my colleague, my former PhD student and now colleague Fergal O'Brien, who actually got a Fulbright as well to go to MIT about 5 years after me. And between us, we've built up this bone research group in the College of Surgeons, which now has got 22 members.
I went to study environmental policy there, and the professor assured me that I would quickly catch up on microeconomics. He told me I could, so I did. But at a broader level, in terms of my own career, I was inspired by the example of teachers of mine there, all of whom had done many things. They had practiced law, but they also had careers as academics at an earlier or later stage in their lives.
Since then, I suppose my whole life has been Fulbright in a sense, since I returned, because I was on the steering committee of the founding committee of the Fulbright Alumni Association, and I am now president of the Irish Fulbright Alumni Association. So all the way through, I suppose it's kind of formed me both musically and personally.
You make a difference over the long term. It's not a difference that is immediately tangible to society or to the broader community. It probably is immediately tangible to the individual, But to broader society, it's of even greater importance. Why do I say that? Have had experience of other programs involving educational exchange where 20 years on, a country can tap into the expertise that a person has developed as a result of an education exchange program in terms of their understanding of a country, of a culture, of a people.
Oftentimes, I've run across alumni of the Fulbright program working in different fields, either in government and business and the cultural arts, various things. And when you start to talk to them about what the Fulbright experience meant to them, they will always come back with some little anecdote about what it was like to be in the United States for this kind of episode that occurred and what that has meant to them for their whole life and how it expanded their understanding of what they're trying to accomplish and achieve in the country in which they're based. It often redefines, for many of them, what they consider to be a successful career in ways that I oftentimes find surprising.
It was really, really interesting. I went to America, discovered I was pregnant just before I left, which was almost a bit of a panic. And then everybody's saying, oh, you can't have a baby in Louisiana. Their hospital system is just crazy. And I was a bit nervous about it. And in the end, I ended up with a private midwife and had a home birth. So I would never have had that experience in Ireland. And I've since had my second child and I had another home birth. But based, the support that I found in Louisiana and the midwife that I had was just excellent, really, really excellent. And it's an experience I definitely wouldn't have had here and made my experience here much better. And I was able to come back and be more confident in terms of giving birth and, labour and all those kind of things that are involved. But then, straight after, Lily Kate was 5 weeks old and Hurricane Katrina was on its way. And that was quite frightening because you've got a small baby, you feel really mothering and protective. And at the same time, you're faced with this, enormous thing that's just about to happen. But we didn't quite realise the extent of it until we looked at a weather map. I think it was 2 nights before Hurricane Katrina hit, and the hurricane was, taking up the whole Gulf of Mexico. And then you thought, okay, this is quite serious, and we should really take this quite seriously. So we evacuated, and it was like something out of one of those movies, those American big movies, where they all, you see all the cars heading in one direction, and people's cats and dogs hanging out of windows, and everyone stuffed into the car with their prized possessions and things like that.
On a cultural level, I got an insight into American life that I couldn't possibly have without living there. I was there for almost 3 years. Watergate had just started in '73 when I arrived, and I was just amazed to see, after a short while, President Nixon on television being closely questioned and having to say that he hadn't told lies and all this sort of thing, because that had never happened here.
I came back to CRH. I took on this business development role. The company was totally concentrated in Ireland with a tiny little foothold in the UK with a team and great colleagues. We expanded in the UK into the Netherlands. And then the oil crisis of 1974 came along and things ground to a halt in Ireland. So nearly to manufacture jobs for ourselves, myself and team. Some went to Nigeria, where oil was creating a boom there. I went to Iran and Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, and great adventures and exciting cultures. And but at the back of my mind, I started to think for CRH, I think the US, would offer much greater prospects in the long term. And I eventually prevailed on my boss, Jim Culleton at the time, and on the board, even though there was strong advice from a very famous international consultant that we had little to offer the United States. Why would we be going back to the US to try and teach them how to make quarries or whatever? But I got the support. I went to New York, '77, looked at some acquisitions, and I moved to California in 78, 79, made some acquisitions in the Western United States, and with great Irish and American colleagues rolled that process right across the US, so that today, with my successor, I came back to CRH as chief executive at the end of '94 and retired from full-time activity there in 2000. My successor, Liam O'Mahony, and his team and all my old colleagues continue to drive that forward, and it's now the biggest in construction materials in the United States and the third or fourth in the world, with something like 2 billion profits this year. where it had 10 million sales, I think, when I joined it, sort of. So very exciting. And America and the Fulbright, was a big stimulus to that, to give me that confidence that, yeah, we could do it there.
It changed my life hugely, and it changed the lives of a lot of other people too. I can say that in all modesty, because 5 or 6 years after I came home, there was a war in Nigeria, and the little state of Biafra tried to break away. And I became aware through my brother, who was a missionary, that there was a great deal of starvation going on there. And my wife and I started what is now Concern by calling a meeting in our home. And that reaction of see a problem, have a go at fixing it, if I hadn't done Fulbright in California, I'd have said that's a terrible problem, somebody should do something about it. But because I had the California can-do, let's go attitude, then it seemed natural, let's call a meeting, let's do something.
I think the Fulbright experience has left an enduring impact on my personal development. First of all, at a personal level, the experience was a very positive one, both for my wife and myself, and also for our children, of living in Washington. We still look back very fondly and warmly on that period. We found Americans very warm, very open, very hospitable. It also gave us a sense of greater comfort, curiously enough, and this is paradoxical, with being Irish and with living in Dublin. Even though we enjoyed Washington and still go back and look up all our friends there, we came back much less restless about Ireland and about living in Dublin. So why was that the case? I think maybe we were just at that point in our lives when we subconsciously were going to have to make a long-term commitment to settle someplace.
I went and I knew nobody. I went on my own. I left the comfort of the networks I'd set up here, and I landed in a university, going back into full-time education, which is daunting and exciting at the same time. And finding out that in a class of 23 people, 5 of us were Fulbrighters gave me straight away a link with people. So there were Taiwanese, there were Canadian, there were Israelis and Chileans in my class, as well as the Irish, so 5 Fulbrighters straight away. So a very social layer attached to Fulbright.
The hope for the International School of Luthery that we've started is to, in much the same way that the Fulbright program's initiative is to increase mutual understanding among nations and between people. That's something that we want to do in a less universal and more particular way as it relates specifically to music. But that's something that I would say the direct result of my Fulbright project here is to, allow an observer to say, look, here's a guy that came to Ireland and attempted to address an area of art and study that had been neglected. And because of kind folks like the Fulbright program and whatnot, he's able to start a school wherein people can study these things on a daily basis and take those the skills that they learn there and the knowledge that they learn there back to countries all over the world.
I'm excited by the growth in the number of centres in the US where Irish is being taught and where people are learning more about the Irish language itself, because flowing from the language, of course, is the culture that underpins or that flows from a language. And that feeds into the broader objectives and agenda of the Fulbright programme. So it will add something to Irish language teaching, not just in the US, but also in Ireland itself.
As part of the Fulbright orientation, we did an immersion in Irish culture and language. And we had an opportunity to learn some basic Irish, to visit the Gaeltacht areas of Ireland, and I think for many of us, we appreciated both the ancient tradition of Irish scholarship, but also how Irish as a culture and a language is being supported by the government here in Ireland and is beginning to thrive. And that really, I think, helped me appreciate how Ireland is similar but also different than us, which I think is a unique opportunity that wouldn't happen in any other way.
The most interesting thing for my kids and my family has been how there are the similarities and the differences in the cultures, and that they use the similarities as the wedge to open up to explore the differences. And the Irish language has become a very important part of my son's experience here, and the sports, the Gaelic sports, have become a very important part of both of their experiences here, and that has helped them meet other children and helped us meet other parents, and that has helped the social side of things immensely.
One thing that stands out immediately is the whole Irish language program. And when I've learned about what people are doing here to study Irish language, to bring back that study to the United States, it's really quite exciting, I think. And that's a special kind of Irish program that you just don't see anywhere else. And that's one program that I think we're all enthusiastic about.
I am lucky enough to be working with the Irish language, which is something I feel deeply passionate about. I really hope that I will be able to work further to help the Irish language, to help promote it, to help teach it, and to help gain exposure throughout the world. I am certain that the Fulbright Award will have an incredible impact on the Irish language in the coming years, and I really hope to be a positive part of that.
I think the Fulbright program is more important today than ever. We're living in a world now that the walls to travel, the walls to exchange are falling down. People are coming together more and more and more. But at the same time, the levels of understanding, the willingness to learn about other cultures seems to be diminishing in some parts.
I think the reason for you would have done it in 1957 hasn't changed, even though the world has changed. I think people who are very bright, very smart, very open to new thinking are even more important in this day and age than they ever were.
Because of increased technology and ability to get places, really all societies today are becoming global. And it's very important to have views from other cultures, from other countries. And who wouldn't want to bring in other people to have another set of eyes look at something or offer a different perspective?
Be they Americans or Irish. They may end up in positions of civic, political leadership, of scientific leadership, of cultural leadership. But they will have a valuable experience through the Fulbright program, which I've no doubt will be of immense relevance to the fundamental objectives of Fulbright, but also of immense relevance to the US and to Ireland into the future. It will influence decisions in the future, but by that personal dynamic and content, it will add value to the very strong and enduring relationship between the United States and Ireland.
There's an enrichment element that always manifests itself when you talk to somebody about the Fulbright program. And then what's also striking is that how many of the people who have graduated from the Fulbright program have gone on to extremely successful careers. There's definitely something there in the selection process and something there in the people who actually go through the full Fulbright program that sparks them to greater and higher achievement than their cohorts in many ways.
If one of my employees came to me and said, I want to take 3, 4, 5 months off because I've got a Fulbright, I would be full of encouragement for them, because they come back better contributors. They come back, with a sparkle that they didn't have when they left.
My idea of a Fulbright scholar is somebody who has leadership qualities.
If you get a Fulbright scholarship, you will always be a Fulbrighter. And it's very important to remember that. That's something nobody can ever take away from you. You are a Fulbrighter. And that means something. It means something in Ireland. It means an awful lot in the USA. It opens doors. People look at you in a different way. Oh, you're a Fulbrighter. So I think that is important. That is one reason for going this route.
It was an exceptional feeling to step off the plane in a place that I had been many times before, but knowing that this time I was there to make a difference.
Frankly, I think that if the Fulbright program didn't exist, it would be absolutely necessary to create it.